Good morning. So I recorded like a good 5 minutes ago telling y'all everything that's going on today. Didn't have sound on. I gotta stop doing that, guys. There's gotta be a way of like turning that on at the exact same time. Turn this camera off. Oh, mercy. So I'm not gonna go through all that big spiel again. Long story short, a little wet over here at the farm. Come over here to bush hog. But I'm going to wait till it dries up a little bit. But I got a little work I need to do on this power unit. It's getting air in the fuel system. We've got a couple theories. This particular fuel system does not have a return that goes to the tank. Any of the mechanical diesel guys out there, most of your old tractors and power units and stuff like that, they got return lines that come off of the injectors that go back into the tank, that I've seen anyway. I'm not saying that there's maybe somebody out there that says no. This one has got a return line, and I'll show you for anybody that is interested. This one's return, I don't know if you can see it, goes to this little canister here. It goes to this. There's a line at the bottom of this that goes back to the intake side. And then there's another line right beside of it that goes down here and feeds back into this, which is the fuel filters. Okay, so here's my problem. I have a lift pump here that's designed for this unit. Right here's the intake. After running it a little while, I pull this side off because it'll act like it's out of fuel. It won't start back. And there's nothing but pressurized air going this direction, coming back into the pump, so it's deadheaded, and I can pump it back up, get fuel flowing again, because it literally won't even suck fuel after that, and it'll run. Well, I can cut it off, come out here a day or so later, and I took this line off that actually feeds back to my filters, and there's air pressure on it even after a day. So what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to clamp these hoses. I got better actual worm clamp, hose clamp. I'm going to put on that hose so that maybe any air that it could be sucking into it, I'll get out. And I'm thinking serious on getting rid of that return. But I'm going to try the worm clamps, and I'm going to try to maybe set this fuel tank down beside of the tank, because that lift pump is designed for it to pick up, and maybe it's something to do with the gravity system. I don't think, I really don't, but we're gonna try it, see how it works. I really, at this point, I don't know what could cause it to not only get air in it, but it's trapping air in it, and it'll be running fine. And then all of a sudden it's like it vapor locks up and there's air in the system. So yeah, any guys out there that know diesels enough better than I do, I work on them a little bit, and I know the basic mechanics pretty good, but a lot of this fuel system and stuff, I'm pretty green on that when it comes to the fuel system. I was brought up on gas motors, so the diesels is still a learning curve for me in particular. Now, like big trucks on air brakes and things of that sort, well, that's what I do for a living as of right now. But the diesel engine part is a lot to it that I don't quite grasp. But I'm gonna try, like I said, putting those clamps on and maybe move this tank down and see just if it does any better. All right. So the starter, we had problems with it dragging. Anybody watched those last videos? I upgraded cables, still had problems with it pulling really hard, getting these cables hot. I knew I had a good battery at that point because I actually got a battery that I knew was good. I've been working with a lot of old batteries I wasn't really sure about, so I was blaming it on those. Should have thought Didn't until too late. But came over here, still dragging. I had her try it. It was still pulling really hard, and I hauled off and smacked that starter right there, and she took off. So that starter's probably going to need rebuilt for a while. The bushings and the brushes inside of it is starting to get wore, getting a lot of dust and stuff in there, causing it to lock down. That's what that problem is. Let's go get the battery and see if she'll crank up. Sad part about it is this battery should be good, should be charged. Didn't use it but the one time. That's really frustrating, no doubt. But it sounds like it's dead. So I got it running. Took me a little bit. Was leaking fuel out of that same little canister. I trimmed it back and I tightened and tightened and tightened, and still wanted to leak. So I finally got it to where it stopped leaking. Got that system primed and everything. Finally got it started. Had it started off with starter fluid. I don't like doing that, but I've had to do it with this several times, unfortunately. But I cut it off, started right back pretty quick, and it did start, which is more than it would do before. But I didn't let it run long, so I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes, because that's usually when it would try to lock up and not do nothing, and we'll see again. And then I'll let it run, if it does start, up to temperature, mess around a little bit, and try it again. But right now I'm letting, I guess, the battery charge. That battery should be good. I mean, literally starts the truck every single time. We're talking about a gas 350 V8, but I mean, I've only used it twice trying to start this and not even cranking that long. So I don't know. It's that starter, I'm pretty sure. It's dragging it down. It's taking a whole lot more juice to get it to turn. But anyway, I'll turn this back on and we'll see whenever here in a minute if it'll start back up. So that part worked. I'm gonna let it run a little bit. Probably straighten up around here while it runs a little bit. I can't wait to get a roof on this thing and get this thing out of the weather. Honestly, I can't. But right now it's just a matter of timing. So I'm gonna, like I say, I'm gonna straighten up around here and let that warm up. We'll try it again. Did start pretty good that time. We'll see. I worked on this floor, as you see, while I was letting that run to warm up. Let it warm up to temperature like It'd been giving me problems. And yeah, it's doing the same thing. It's the only one that gets up to temperature. Well, it seems to be. I mean, it could be at other times too. I'm going to pull that little hose at the top of that, and if there's a lot of air spews out of that, then I'm getting air in it somehow, for sure. And if that's the case, I'm going to take that canister completely out. I'm going to block that port off just like on the tractor, and I'm going to put that fuel return that goes into them filters, and I'm going to put it back into the tank like it's on most tractors. I'm wondering, and you guys let me know if this makes sense. This is just the theory. I'm wondering if, because that canister has got a line going to the air intake, I'm wondering if something's messed up inside that little bitty canister and allowing air to be sucked into the fuel system. After it runs for so long, it sucks enough in it that it starts acting problems. When it's fresh, it's not getting enough air in to really cause any problems. When it's just started up and barely run for 2 or 3 minutes and then cut off. But when it's run for a long period of time, it allows it to collect up air one way and not into the other way, which causes it to sort of vapor lock. But I'm going to take this line loose and see what happens. Air. A little bit of fuel spitting out with it, but it's a lot of air and a lot of pressure on it. I mean, like steady pressure. Bubbles, just air bubbles. I'm not 100%, but I'm getting about certain of that theory. I'm not getting any fuel in my oil. I'm not getting any mixture of any kind of fluids, but I'm getting mixture of air in my fuel system. I've purged it multiple times, got everything, all the air out when I go to start it. It runs good. I've even sawed with it. As long as it's steady running, it seems to do fine. But when you idle it back down after you've ran it a while, sometimes if you idle it too quick, it'll die like it's run out of fuel. And it won't hardly start back for nothing. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take this one loose too, see if there's any air after I release that one going to this side. But I bet you there ain't no fuel. Very little fuel. That should be pouring. Now it's built up. See, that's what I'm saying. It gets just enough air in it that it won't let it crank back. It gets sort of a vapor lock. So I don't know if it's coming from the fuel pump itself, the injection pump, some way or another leaking. I ain't got no leaks to the outside, but I don't know about anything sucking to the inside. That's the only thing I can think is that canister. I'm going to make a trip to the parts store on my way home. See if they got a bolt that'll work in that. If it's a banjo fitting, I need to block it off. There's a little tiny hole. It don't flow through it good. That's for sure. So if there's a lot of overflow back into the system, it may not be flowing good enough, but I don't know. It's definitely got a lot of like green gookity gook, and that thing is full. But if I can bypass that and just send it back into the tank, then there's really no reason to even have this. I'm not real sure what this canister does. I've never run across a canister like this. Like I say, most of the diesels I'm used to have got return lines. It's definitely got fuel in it. It's definitely pretty nasty though. That's for sure. So, it's actually starting to rain a little bit here. Well, I don't guess mowing is in my cards today. Long story short, I was mid-talking. Camera died. I was able to find, whoop whoop, if I don't lose it. I was going to show you. I was able to find a bolt that should work. But I hope I don't need that. I had a little, it's a crush washer. It's a copper washer that are for this type of stuff. And I just dropped this bolt. 1 minute. Okay, to show you how lucky I am, that was in that. And I was able to find it. I got one on here, but always good to have a backup in case that one leaks. So basically, I'm just going to plug that hole, and I got some line that I'm going to run me a return line over. Because on a tractor, your return line comes off the top of your injectors, goes straight back into the tank. There shouldn't be any pressure on that line. And with that canister setting up the way it is, right now, there's a lot of pressure on that line. So, thinking this will work. Because there shouldn't be any pressure on that line. Even fuel pressure, let alone air pressure. So maybe this will work. We'll see. I know I'm getting fuel to that. At least. And I get it that there's going to be a little air in that system because of that type work. You know, pulling the lines off, it'll get air, but it should run. And once it runs long enough, it should be out of the system. Whatever air might be trapped in it will actually go out. It'll push its way out. So, let's see if that'll work. It's getting hot. Getting a little warm out here. I didn't know this camera wasn't on. It's been off for a while, and I've been working and talking and all that good stuff. But you probably didn't want to see it no way, truthfully, because there was a lot of trial and error. But I think I got it, and I think I figured it out. For those watching and know and hollering at the computer or phone or whatever, trying to tell me what kind of dummy I am, trial and error. I figured it out, I think. So, for those of you who don't know, like I didn't, basically, that little canister right there takes fuel pressure from in here. Because of this little pump, is constantly pumping pressure and pumping fuel tighter and tighter. So it has to go somewhere. It's not gravity fed like most tractors are. Most tractors that I've come across are gravity fed. So that pressure's got to go somewhere. So it goes up to this little canister, and it comes out of here. Goes up to this little canister along with the return. All they did, instead of returning it back to the tank, they just stayed it in with this canister too. Because there's not a whole lot of return coming out. I found that out too. So,
It fills this canister up, and it starts going out to this line right here. It comes in, and it goes right in there. So, and then it goes inside here. Well, there's a electrical plug here, and that other starter solenoid up there that I didn't know what went to for a while is so that you can turn the key backwards, and this had a little heat coil in it. And it was designed so that you could heat up this little heating element, and it would, when you started cranking, it would squirt little bits of fuel in there, and it was hot fuel for cold days. So you could cold start it. Sort of like a glow plug. But the fuel went right in the middle of it, and it went straight into the intake. It sucked it in. On cold days, you didn't have to ether it or nothing like that. That's what it was designed for. However, it was stopped up here, it was stopped up here, and it was stopped up inside of there. And there's a little ball valve in there that you have to take out. So, by putting that on there, it requires that little amount of fuel, whether it's hot or not, on warm days or when it's hot started, it still requires that little bit of fuel to be in there to get it to start easy without ethering it. Don't ask me why, this one just did. So I put everything back the way it was, but I cleaned it, and I got a little out of adjustment on that little ball valve in there. I didn't tighten it up tight enough. It was really loose. It would not put air back into the system. It would close, but it would dump too much of that fuel into it. And whenever you ram it up, it'd start sucking fuel out, whether it was coming out of this pump or not at idle. So, and the higher it got, the more fuel fed into it through the intake. So that being said, I had to take it all back apart again and tighten that ball up. Just barely where you could put some real pressure with my mouth through it and it would come out. That was it. But it was so stopped up, I had to knock that ball out. That's how tight it was in there to start with, because it's just so gummed up. So I got it where it would do it and work. And then I find out this is what kind of day working on this junk is. Then I find out my injectors are pouring, leaking. This thing's smoking like crazy out of the blue. I mean, it never had before, but all of a sudden now she's smoking like crazy. And then I got two back injectors that are leaking right around the main bottom seals. So I'll show you where that's at. Basically, I don't know if you can see it, but on these old engines, and about all your new ones too, you got these injectors right here on a diesel. Fuel comes into it there. Nah, like I say, I don't know, it may be too bright out here. But anyway, there's a seal there at the bottom that seals it off against this intake right here and the head. And these little keepers that was on top were on these two crooked. Now, I did not put these on. This was on here when I got it. But they were on there crooked, so it was kicking that to the side a little bit. So I took those loose, treasing the tops off of it. Turned them, got them sitting on there straight, tightened everything up. That took a little while. Now keep in mind, I had already ran this thing before, and that amount of time sitting would normally, this thing wouldn't start back. She started back like a champ. So I give it a little bit I give 5 minutes. I've been recording. And under normal past circumstances, this thing wouldn't start at all. So let's see if after 5 minutes, if she'll start right back up just like she did, and it should every time, at least one. So 7 minutes, 20 seconds now since I cut it off the last time. Let's see. She smokes right when I first fired up, but it fires up. There's a slight hard knock in it when he first fired back up. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if it's never done it before, but again, I've always had to start it off ether, and ether always makes them clank a little bit. So it's not smoking as bad as it was, just as I idled. When those injectors was leaking, that thing was smoking bad. I know the motor's probably got a lot of wear. I know the engine has got some age on it, and I know that it was probably used and abused. But as long as it's got the power to turn that mill and start without a bunch of ether every time, I'm good. I mean, it'll last a long time. So I learned something new today. I learned if it's got that little canister and it's got a fuel pump, a lift pump, not an injection pump. This has got two pumps. It's got a low pressure pump and a high pressure pump. The lift pump is so that you can have a fuel tank on the ground beside of you and don't have to have a gravity fed. But if it has that, even if it's gravity fed, if you don't want pressure, you need to make sure that that canister is clear the whole way. And from what I can tell, I can put enough pressure with my mouth to blow in that line. So if you can blow and blow and blow and you don't feel nothing, it's wrong. It's something other stopped up in that line. If it's stopped up, it's going to build up pressure back in the entire system because that's its pressure relief. You'll still have a little bit, you know, I mean, you're going to have a little bit. That's understandable, but I was having a lot. So that's the pressure relief, and that's the way it starts because it leaks that little bit of fuel back into the intake, and that's its initial fuel to get it to fire up and pull fuel up. So I could always get a new little heat coil because I ripped that one apart to be able to get that out and clean it. I could get a new one of those and I could wire that up to where that would actually work, and I may do that this winter if it becomes really hard to start. We will see as the temperature starts to drop. My Ford tractor, my industrial loader, and the tractor, I know because I know I bought the tractor off of, are both, after it drops below 40, they're hard to start. They don't have that feature on them. You can have that feature even on a gravity-fed tank. That particular line with that heat set and all that stuff, because it'll just gravity feed over to it, and as you crank, it'll feed to it. It warms the air. That system actually warms the air and the fuel. So the way that one's designed is it puts a certain amount of fuel into it, and it warms the air coming in so that it warms the mug up. That tractor down there has got one that just warms the air, and that's the way most of the gravity-fed systems that I've seen are. I've never seen this. So, but it started up like it's supposed to. If you like this video, and I know some people ain't into mechanicing and stuff like that, but if you like this video and you want to know more about my power unit or the things that I've come into, or you have a question that maybe I can answer, shoot us a message. But please, 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 like, share, subscribe. Subscribe. We're really trying to bump up those numbers. We're really trying to grow the channel because I'm going to be doing a lot here hopefully soon. I really want to try to get on this shed. I really want to try to get on getting a hay pasture ready for next year. I'm moving my hay field on our 30 acres. So if you like what we're doing, if you want to see more sawing, hit that like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications so that you can watch our sawing videos. I hope now that this will start easily, I hope to really get on and start sawing some more. Like I say, like, subscribe, stay in touch. Thanks, guys. Good luck to everybody.